Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at 1995 Score baseball cards. In 1994, Score wanted to make a card set that was very professional, one that was the kind of card that a series collector would want to pursue. So the card they designed looks really more like a pinnacle card than it does a Score card. And it worked pretty well, but the primary advantage that the cards had was the fact that it had a parallel set, which was called Gold Rush. That's really what people were pursuing. The card design, though, was a little bit too ambitious, and it didn't really fit with the kinds of collectors that a base brand was really pursuing. The cards weren't flashy enough, they weren't exciting enough, and they weren't the proper design for a parallel. So for their rookie and traded card set, they went with something that was very playful, very energetic, something very much designed for kids, and it was not the kind of thing that is going to be taken seriously by series collectors, but at least it was better focused on younger audiences. But still, both of those were kind of scattershot affairs where one was trying too hard to be serious, one was trying too hard to be fun and energetic. So they wanted to marry them together in 1995, and that's exactly what they did. The card design that they came up with for 1995 is a mesh of both of them where they have a two-tone card, well, two colors on the card. They have tan around the outside for dirt, obviously, and then on both sides it fades into a color in the middle where there's it's not a fade, it's a transition that has kind of a weird print effect. But that is such a good design because it has a lot of energy, it has a really good transition, it has interest, but it doesn't really draw your eye. So it hits all of those marks, and it uses very professional colors, which make the card feel like they're serious cards, but they have the playfulness for a younger audience. So they were successful in hitting both marks. But the cards, kind of like in the year before, the cards were designed as much for standing on their own as for the parallels. And there is actually a plurality to parallels in this case, even though in the packs there was only one parallel. So they wanted to again do their Gold Rush cards, and the Gold Rush cards are done the same way. They have a gold foil surface on the cards, so the whole thing has a bronzed quality to it, and then on the back it says Gold Rush, and that's it. That's the only difference between the cards. It's not a great looking card, but it's a great contrast to the regular card. So the whole point with the Gold Rush cards is you have the main card and you have the Gold Rush card next to each other, and they look great. But they wanted to do something more interesting because up to this point there had been a fair amount of interactivity that was going on with the various card brands, where you would have sendaways or wrapper redemptions, various things where collectors could actually send in and get, whether there were prizes or redemptions or whatever, get something back from the card company. And that was a level of energy and excitement and something really special that collectors were really falling for. So they decided to get involved with that here as well. So with a special redemption card, you could, if you collected together an entire team with Gold Rush cards, you could send that in, the redemption card and all of the Gold Rush cards from that team. You could send it in and get a platinum version of that team. So the way that they released their platinum cards was team by team by team. And the cards were very, very, very energetic and vibrant. It's a lot of fun. The cards do look really cool. In fact, the speckly quality of it is a totally overpowering affair, which I don't mind at all. I think it works really well for these cards. They're not standalones, but then again, they were never treated that way. These cards were literally treated as team sets. So that meant for team collectors, this was perfect. For set collectors, it was perfect. But it also meant that it really energized people to tear through packs, because now if you were still in the redemption window, which obviously at this point we're not, then you were not just trying to collect the gold set, which the Gold Rush set was going to be it was a very ambitious affair to try to collect that. But now you could also try to get the platinum set as well, which was a lot harder to get together. So for just ripping packs, Score really nailed it. And the platinum cards are also at a much more rare rate. There were less than 5,000 of each of the team sets that were created. And obviously it was while supplies lasted, and I highly doubt that there were very many card sets left when Pinnacle failed. I don't know. But at any rate, that was the way that they built their cards. Now, the card set did have a couple of subsets. They had their season highlights, where they had just a couple of cards for the season highlights. And these cards were treated in a different way than they'd done before. They were starting to take the design more seriously. They also had checklists, which in the case of the checklists here, they actually have team histories on them, which means these are checklists to take seriously if you're a team collector. They're actually built to work like that. And then the one subset they had that was a true theme was Hitters Incorporated. Obviously, this is a bunch of offensive players, and it was a card design that really kind of showed the whole mentality that the design team at Score had at this time. The cards they're interesting, but they do look pretty cool. They also had rookie cards, and the rookie cards were done in a very interesting way. White border around the outside, and then they have an inner background behind the player with some interesting lines that are some artistic lines that make the border between the two, and then the player pops out of it. Very dynamic card. Very, very... There's too much white on this card. Let's face it, there's way too much white. And the cards really do suffer that way, but remember, this is a card set that was built as much for the parallels as anything else. And when you look at the parallels of this card, this is where the parallels really look good. The Gold Rush looks good, and the Platinum, oh, the Platinum is fantastic. The way that it reads on this card. That's what these kinds of cards do so well. When you have a big white surface like that, it just accentuates the parallel. So the rookies, interestingly, in the main set don't look very good, but for the parallels, look fantastic. And that was the set. But they had a lot of stuff going on apart from that, starting off with a special print ad contest. So, like I said, they were starting to get into this interactive quality that the card industry was seeing at about this time. And so what they did was they ran two different print ads, and the print ads had errors. The idea was that if a kid identified the errors on the print ad, they sent that in along with shipping and handling, they could get back one of two players. They would get back a Rodriguez, either Alex Rodriguez or Ivan Rodriguez. Now, the two print ads had a different player, so it depended on which print ad you sent in. But in either case, you would get back the card, which was designed the same way as the main cards in the set, except they have a rainbow holofoil on the card, so the whole card has that spectral effect. And then they also have a little logo that specifies the nature of this particular card. And then they have their inserts. And the first insert is airmail. And this is something that I was pretty impressed when I saw, because usually the concept of airmail is the kind of thing you see in football, where it refers to quarterbacks passing to wide receivers. You don't really see much of a theme based upon the baseball getting knocked out in a home run, knocked out into the heavens. And so I loved when I just stumbled upon this and realized that this is a card that really does celebrate the baseball heading off into the heavens, the air that the baseball is flying through. Really cool concept. So neat, really neat with that. And it also has a nice little logo that is in very etched gold foil. So pretty cool card. Then they also have double gold champs, and this is a horizontal card front. It has some gold foil on it, and this is looking at players who had a tendency to win awards. So very much a star-studded affair in this card set. They also had a set for draft picks, and the draft picks cards, these are very much in the same vein as the rookie cards in the main set. It's horizontal in this case, and the big difference, obviously, the whole card does look different, but it has gold foil on the cards, which makes it look very distinct. But it still has that feel of being related to the main card set, which I think is a cool theme that they have. And then they have Dream Team, and the Dream Team cards, it's an ancient hologram, so it's like the old arena holograms. I don't know why they did this, because it's really flat. It is not really, there's not much interest to it. It is so weird, because this should have been about 3 to 4 years before. If they'd done it then, it still wouldn't have been great, but it would have at least kind of made sense. But we're in 1995. Why are they doing this? I don't know. And it's a disappointment, because the Dream Team cards should always be a really cool insert set, and this year they are not a great insert set. Although they did do a rookie Dream Team set, and these cards, as you can see, are a lot better. Much, much better. Kind of interesting they did two different Dream Teams, but they did, and they did a much better job in the second run. Then they had a special set that went along in these packs. This was, the main set came with Series 1 and Series 2, and the Hall of Gold card set also came in the first half of the set. 55 cards was in Series 1. The other 55 cards was in Series 2. So they were doing something similar to what Upper Deck was doing with their SE cards. So it's a large set, so that means you collect these at a pretty good rate. But it's actually a substantive set where all the cards have a gold foil basically a gold foil surface. So it's done in the same way as the Gold Rush cards, except these cards are actually designed around it. And the cards have a theme of gold down the side, and then they have a slash, and the whole bottom of the picture has a gold bronzed quality to it. So it's kind of cool what they were doing with it, but this is all about the flashiness. It's a flashy, different card. That's the whole concept. They also had a redemption card, or two redemption cards, that I waited to talk about here because when they released the card set, there were a couple of players who had changed teams, but they didn't have that captured in the main set. So they went ahead and they added redemption cards so that you could get versions of the cards with the player and the new team, which was a cool thing where you got to put together printing plates and go through a whole process, and it takes so long until you actually make the cards that a lot of things can change. So then at the end, when you're starting to put them into packs, you can then go in and make these trade cards for players. You can make new versions of the cards with the players in their new uniforms. So that's what they did. They had two trade cards. One of them was for 11 players in the main card set, where you would get versions of the cards with the new pictures. But they also did another one where they have 5 of the Hall of Gold players. So basically, of the 11 players, any of those players that showed up in Hall of Gold, they did the same thing with Hall of Gold. So it was a separate release. And again, the cards look the same. It's just they have different pictures. That's the only difference. And then the last thing that they did was their rules set. The rules cards are, this is a fun card that they made. Not necessarily a great card, but a fun card. It does look good. Big picture on one side and then a big mess of stuff on the other, which I don't mind. It is kind of a big traffic jam, but the way that the card comes through is pretty cool. And I love the gold foil down at the bottom that's textured. I think that reads well. But where this card set is significant is that there is also a jumbo version. There was a special collector's kit that was available, and in the collector's kit they had a full-size card, and I don't mean life-size, I just mean that it's basically the size of a sheet of paper. The parallel of these cards is the same card, much bigger, but these bigger, way bigger cards on the card back, they are actually serial numbered out of 3,000. So that is the last thing that they had for 1995 Score Baseball. A pretty good amount of stuff, primarily the complexity of the things that you had to interact with, and they had a fair number of them. So the card set had a lot going on, and it was a great card set to really engage the audience with the Pinnacle company. It can make it a little bit tricky when you're trying to collect it later on because you got to find a lot of things that people already got through the mail, but it's still fun to discover all these things, and there are a lot of things to discover here. So I'm going to look at 96 and on in a separate video. I think this is enough for this one video. If you haven't seen the other videos leading up to this, because I've done 1988 through 1994 already, definitely check out those videos. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And thank you very much for watching.